In this discussion video, I'd like to cover a topic which is not necessarily technical in nature, theoretical in nature with regards to the arts themselves, but it is an important topic related to the mentality and your inner drive to practice and train. It's actually, I'm making this video because one of the learners on the system sent me an email. He heard me discussing an aspect of this in a podcast, and he says that it affected him and changed his mindset and outlook and perspective on training in a positive manner. So I thought I'd expand a little bit on that, and hopefully some of you that may be having similar ideas or thoughts can get some clarity on this topic. This topic is actually basically at a basic level concerning the motivation and purpose of your training. A lot of the times we start training with a lot of preconceived ideas, a lot of grand delusions of grandeur even, but other ideas that are in the initial times the impetus for getting you to start training. However, as time goes on through your training, you find that that might wear away, or your perspective on that might change and disappear, and then you might lose or change your ideas about training, losing motivation, and in fact sometimes feeling a bit lost. And a lot of the times the people that start training have certain goals in mind. Some people have goals in mind that are related to wanting to become a teacher, or wanting to utilize the art in some sort of competitive format, to be a great competitor, whatever the case is, whether it's a combat art or a performance art, or these are the types of goals that some people initially begin with. And that's fine, those are fine goals and endeavors, but the reality of having such a mentality continuously is not very realistic. You won't actually be able to keep that mentality and drive you realistically, simply because life happens. And when life happens, things change. When things change, your initial goal might poof and disappear in front of your eyes. There could be a multitude of reasons for this. One of the reasons could be that you get injured. One of the reasons could be that there's some family issue, an instance that stops you from pursuing that path that you were initially driving for. Many reasons could lead you off of this initial goal. And then you'd look back on your training and you'd say something like, well, then all of this is pointless. Why am I doing this? What am I actually training for? The goal is gone, so let me quit. And I know a lot of people throughout my life that have gone in and out of training like this and disappeared, they've been very dedicated for many years, and then suddenly they disappear, and I see them 4 or 5 years later, and they've become unhealthy, they've become overweight, their mobility is gone. And then they've come back to training, but they've come back to training with a completely different outlook. Their outlook now is that they want to train because they want to do it for themselves. They found the actual benefits for themselves in terms of spirit, in terms of emotion, in terms of just pure enjoyment, in terms of health and other benefits that they got from training. In general, that I spoke about in a previous video. And now they've come back to training, and a lot of them that come back after that initial disappearance, when they come back, they stay forever. They stick with training forever, whether they're with a teacher, training with my teacher, etc., training with me, or if they've gone off, they've actually had this anchor in their life, which is training, and it's stuck with them forever from that point of view. Now, the difference with these two things is simply looking at your training realistically and holistically, and why you're doing it. Not that the training changed, the person changed. So for me, I always had a different outlook when I started training. I never trained with a goal in mind, such as I want to be a teacher or I want to open a school. I never had that. In fact, I used to get slightly annoyed when I used to have to help other Kung Fu brothers or other people within my work realm and teach them, because for me, teaching took away time from my training. And I always put myself first. I always trained for me from the beginning. I never had an outlook like, I want to do X, Y, and Z. I'm training because I want to become a world champion in that sense, or I want to teach and open a school in that sense. I simply loved the training, and I simply sat down and inspected myself and said, does this give me joy? It gives me immense joy. I'm doing this for myself, and come what may as a result. Whether that be it takes me into a direction of profession, or if it doesn't matter. It's an anchor and a constant in my life, something that I could always rely on, something that I always look forward to, something that I always knew I'm doing this because I love doing the martial practice. I love what it's done for me in terms of my physical development, my spiritual development, and my mental development, and learning all these interesting aspects of culture, learning aspects of the weaponry, learning the history behind the art. I truly looked forward to my training sessions. And this is something quite important, because a lot of the times if you're training with the goal of, okay, I want to be a teacher, it seems like a chore that you're training. So you actually have to say, okay, let me go and get to training because I'm doing it because, or I have to go train on my own, and I'm doing it because I want to become a teacher. And like I said, if that goal doesn't materialize, then you're like, well, why am I training? So you lose it. You need to put yourself first. You need to sit back and do this because you love doing it, because you found value in your life. And it should be something that adds value and joy to your life, not takes it away. It shouldn't feel, it's hard work. You have to be, disciplined to push yourself to get through the hard training, differing seasons. Right now I'm in the middle of the sticky summer here in Beijing. It's wet, it's supremely humid and hot. You're sweating 24/7, whether you're inside or outside. But I know that I have a constant, which is my training in my life. It's the anchor. It's something that anchors me in my daily life. Come what may, come rain, come shine, come hail, come snow, come hot, come cold, come family problem, come work problem, come happiness, come sadness. It's the one thing that I can always rely on to be the same, the anchor in my life. You need to find joy in your training, and you need to sit back and appreciate the benefits you get out of your training. And that's the mentality you need to approach it with. I'm training because I love training. I enjoy it. It's got all these benefits for me, and I'm going to do it as I can do it, irrespective of what comes, what may, what might develop from it. There are going to be days where you don't feel as good. There are going to be days where you feel better. But it's the idea that it doesn't matter. All of that doesn't matter. I'm here training. Whether I feel weak today and all I can do it is in a slow manner, it's a release. It's a break from the daily grind of everything else that you have in your life. You can treat it as a refuge. And whether you have an hour to put aside or even half an hour a day, try to just simply say, this time, it's not for that goal or that work or that chore or whatever. It's for me. This is my time. I'm setting aside this half hour for me, and that's why I train. And you will see that this then becomes a lifetime practice. It becomes something that is constant, that you do every day without having to think about. And you will see that it brings you a lot more joy. The world changes. You might see something like, for example, in the past few years with the explosion of the Xuxiaodong incident, which led to a lot of rhetoric that is against Chinese traditional practices. That all falls by the wayside. Why? It doesn't matter what everybody else says. You found the value to yourself in your life, and that's why you do it. Somebody can come and say X and somebody can come and say Y. You can't ping pong between these two things all the time. You need to be stable and centered. And that's why I say training is like an anchor. Try to treat it like an anchor. Don't treat it like a chore. Don't treat it as simply a road that you're going to get something out of. Because if you don't get it, then you think you've wasted the road. It's all because the perspective needs to be changed. The road's the same. So my teacher has a saying that he used to say, especially as he got older, and it's something that he would talk about. He would call it ones and zeros. He would say, and he was applying it to health, but also to this aspect that I would say. He would always say, take care of your health first. Your health is number one. Everything else that you add on to it are zeros, but health is number one. Mental health, spiritual health, emotional health. Put that first. That's why you do things. Put that first. And then every other thing that you do in your life, whether it be learning, whether it be work, whether it be some task that you're passionate about outside of everything else, those are zeros that you can add after this one. The one is you. The one is your health. In this case, the one is you. What you're doing this for, you're doing it for yourself. Put yourself first. And then add all these other things on, and 1 + 0 + 0 is 100, plus another 0 is 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1,000,000. You become richer and richer as long as you've got yourself as point one, anchor number one, putting yourself first and everything else is afterwards. But if you don't put yourself first and you just add all these zeros, at the end you have nothing. 0 plus 0 is still 0. If you don't have this initial aspect, this one first, you're going to have an empty life at the end of this path that you travel, or you'll get lost along the way. So, you know, this is my own experience. It's one of the things that I've always found refuge in. I've always found joy when I know, okay, it's time for me to go do my training. I didn't feel like it's a chore. And there were periods in my life where I started treating it like a chore. I started treating it like, okay, grind, 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 grind. And I found that, wait, this wasn't making me happy anymore. And then I stepped back and I said, wait, I've got to change my mindset and my attitude towards why I'm doing this. This was very early in the days. And then I found, okay, come what may, I just train. And I train for me. I'm putting myself first. I'm training because I enjoy it, not for any other goals. I'm not going to have this mindset, get going now because you've got to get this goal at the end. I mean, goals are good in terms of short term and motivation, but the big picture needs to be, I do it for me. So I hope this little discussion has given you some insight and hopefully something to think about. And I hope it's inspired you to find yourself and put yourself first and train these arts for yourself. These arts have helped Chinese people in China go through the worst that you can imagine. You know, there are people that, and I'm not talking about modern history, I'm talking through ancient history too. If you think China has been a messy place and a difficult place to live in the last 100 years, you need to think about the periods before, the thousands of years of conquest and warfare. And these martial arts were a way that people kept themselves not only healthy, not only active, but sane. It kept them sane through the torments of everything else. And had they not had the mindset that this is good for them and that they enjoy it, and it's something for themselves to practice, they wouldn't have practiced. And in more recent times, it would have disappeared. Because at the end of the day, we're doing classical arts that are somewhat out of place in modern times. You can drop all the cold weapons because they're not really functional in today's society. There's no place that you're going to be able to utilize a broadsword or a spear. Even if it's in self-defense, you'll probably go to jail. So at the end of the day, in modern times, these things carried on because of their value to the people that practice them. And people like my teacher, his grand teachers went through a lot of hardships simply to keep training. I mean, we're talking about people that went under political and persecution, fire for their cultural practices, but they wouldn't let it go. Why? Because it had so much value to them. Okay, we've kind of gone off topic here, but I hope this has given you a little bit of insight, and hopefully it's given you a little bit of inspiration to find yourself and do this for yourself.